Welcome back to the deep dive. You guys sent in a ton of material on network effects.
Yeah.
And we're going to sift through it together and try and find the real gems.
It's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
We've got some excerpts from Andrew Chen's book, The Cold Start Problem.
Okay.
You could say it's the go-to guide for understanding how today's biggest tech companies use networks to grow.
Okay, but before we get into the details, can you give us like the big picture?
Sure.
Why should we even care about network effects?
Oh, they're everywhere, even if we don't realize it.
Okay.
They're in social media, ride-sharing apps, even things like ancient Babylonian law.
Wow.
Once you understand network effects, you start to see the world in a whole new light.
Yeah.
You'll make smarter choices about the products you use and maybe even get inspired to create something yourself.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Chen talks about something called the cold start framework.
Yes.
5 stages that companies go through as they build a network.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great place to start.
Absolutely. It's a roadmap for how these companies grow from nothing into giants.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
While we usually associate network effects with tech, the concept itself is ancient.
Interesting. So let's start with the basics. What exactly are network effects?
Simply put, a network effect happens when a product or service becomes more valuable as more people use it.
Okay.
Think of the first telephone.
Right.
Not very useful if only one person has one, right?
Yeah.
But as more people got telephones, the value skyrocketed because you could connect with more people.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And we see that same dynamic with companies like Facebook or Uber.
Right.
The more people use them, the more useful they become.
Exactly. More riders on Uber means shorter wait times,
Right.
which attracts more drivers and riders.
Yeah.
The same goes for buyers and sellers on eBay.
Right.
It's a powerful cycle. But there's a common misconception that network effects automatically lead to a winner-take-all situation.
You mean where one company dominates completely?
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see how people might think that.
Right. But it's not always that simple.
Right.
Building a network from scratch is incredibly tough.
Right.
There's this idea called Metcalfe's law,
Okay.
which says a network's value is proportional to the square of its users.
Yeah.
Catchy,
Yeah.
but it oversimplifies things.
So what are we missing with Metcalfe's law?
Real-world complexities.
Okay.
For one, there's the alley threshold.
Okay.
This is the minimum number of users a network needs to survive.
Okay.
Think of meerkats.
Right.
If their mob gets too small,
Yeah.
they're easy prey.
Right.
Below a certain threshold, the mob can't survive.
So are you saying that if a network doesn't reach a certain size,
Yeah.
it's doomed to fail?
Pretty much. It's like a party. If only a few people show up,
Right.
it's going to fizzle out.
Yeah.
You need that critical mass of people to get the energy going.
I see your point. So how does this alley effect in nature apply to businesses?
The parallels are striking.
Okay.
If a new social media platform doesn't attract enough users early on,
Yeah.
people get bored and leave.
Right.
A marketplace with too few sellers struggles to attract buyers,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Makes sense.
It's a delicate dance.
You mentioned earlier that Chen's cold start framework
Mm-hmm.
helps companies overcome these challenges.
Right.
Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. The framework outlines 5 stages companies go through when building a network.
Okay.
They are the cold start problem, the tipping point, escape velocity, hitting the ceiling, and the moat.
Got it.
Each stage comes with its own set of hurdles and opportunities.
So it's like a rocket launch.
Yes,
You need the right plan, a powerful engine, and the perfect trajectory to get into space.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Instead of fuel and thrusters, though,
Yeah.
we're talking about users, engagement, and strategic growth.
Right.
Let's start with the first stage, the cold start problem.
Okay.
This is all about overcoming what Chen calls anti-network effects.
Anti-network effects. What exactly are those?
When a network is small,
Hmm.
it actually works against itself.
Okay.
Think about it. Would you join a social media platform with only 10 users?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because there wouldn't be much going on.
Right.
It's a classic chicken and egg problem.
Okay. I can see the dilemma.
Yeah.
So how do companies escape this cold start trap?
They focus on creating what Chen calls an atomic network.
An atomic network. That sounds pretty intense.
It's actually simpler than it sounds.
Okay.
It's the smallest possible network that can sustain itself.
Okay.
Imagine a tiny spark that can ignite a massive fire.
Right.
That's the idea here.
So how do you create one of these atomic sparks?
By focusing on attracting the hard side of the network first,
The hard side. What's that?
These are the users who generate the most value.
Okay.
Think of content creators on YouTube,
Okay.
not sellers on eBay, or drivers on Uber.
Yeah.
Once you have enough of these hard side users,
Okay.
the easy side, the viewers, buyers, and writers
Yeah.
follow.
So it's about building the foundation first.
Exactly.
But how do you attract those high-value users when your network is still tiny and unproven?
One way is to target a specific niche or community.
Okay.
Chen uses the example of Tinder's launch.
Okay.
Instead of going nationwide, they started on a single college campus, USC.
Oh, interesting.
They threw parties, got students excited, and created buzz within that smaller community.
So they created a super focused atomic network where everyone knew each other and saw the immediate value.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Exactly. And once they were successful at USC, they replicated that model at other colleges, gradually expanding outward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This leads us to the next stage of the cold start framework, the tipping point.
Okay.
But we can save that for later.
Okay. Let's take a moment to digest everything we've covered so far.
Sure.
We've talked about the power of network effects, the challenges of the alley threshold, and the importance of building that initial atomic network.
Right.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, and it's just the beginning. There's so much more to unpack about how networks grow and compete.
I'm ready to dive in, but first let's take a quick break.
Okay.
We'll be right back to continue our exploration of network effects and the cold start framework. All right, let's jump back into our exploration of the cold start framework.
Okay.
You mentioned the tipping point is the next stage after establishing that initial atomic network.
That's right.
Oh.
It's the moment when things really start to take off.
Okay.
Think back to the Tinder example.
Okay.
Their initial success at USC was crucial.
Right.
But the real magic happened when they replicated that model at other college campuses.
So the tipping point is about scaling up that initial spark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Each new campus they launched on benefited from the growing network.
Okay.
Imagine joining Tinder and seeing that everyone from your high school is already on it. Suddenly, the app becomes much more appealing.
I get it. It's about building momentum.
Yeah.
Making the network irresistible.
Precisely. And this leads us to the third stage.
Okay.
Escape velocity.
Escape velocity.
This is where growth explodes and the company starts building a sustainable business.
So it's not just about user numbers anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Now it's about user engagement, retention, and figuring out how to make money.
Right.
Chen highlights 3 forces that drive this stage.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are they?
First, there's the acquisition effect.
Okay.
This is about optimizing how you bring in new users.
Right.
Think viral marketing campaigns, referral programs, anything that helps you acquire users more efficiently.
So it's like fine-tuning your engine for maximum speed.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The second force is the engagement effect.
Okay.
This is about making your product so engaging that people keep coming back for more.
So how do you make a network sticky? What are some tactics companies use?
It depends on the product, but it often involves adding new features, creating a sense of community, and personalizing the user experience.
Okay.
Think about the evolution of Twitter.
Right.
It started as a simple way to follow friends.
Right.
Now it's a platform for diverse communities with trending topics and multimedia content.
Yeah.
The experience is much richer.
It's like the platform grew along with its users, giving them more of what they wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the third force is the economic effect.
Okay.
This is where the company figures out how to make money from its network.
Right, because at the end of the day, a business needs to be profitable.
Of course.
Yeah.
Some companies use advertising.
Right.
Others use subscriptions.
Yeah.
And some charge transaction fees.
Yeah.
The key is to find a model that aligns with the value you provide.
So we've got this powerful engine running.
Yeah.
We're attracting users, keeping them engaged, and generating revenue.
Yeah.
It sounds like a recipe for unstoppable growth. But is it really?
That's a great question.
Okay.
And it leads us to the fourth stage, hitting the ceiling.
Okay, that doesn't sound as optimistic.
Yeah.
What kind of ceiling are we talking about here?
The ceiling of growth.
Okay.
Every network eventually faces challenges as it matures.
Right.
It might be market saturation, rising acquisition costs, or declining engagement.
So even with network effects, there are limits to growth.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
Even the most successful networks have to deal with this.
Right.
Think about eBay.
Oh.
Because as they grew,
Yeah.
they faced increasing competition. higher costs to acquire new sellers, and user engagement started to plateau.
So what happens when you hit this ceiling? Do you just accept that growth is over?
Not at all.
Okay.
Companies need to innovate and adapt. eBay, for example, introduced features like buy it now, expanded into new categories, and focused on improving the user experience. Okay.
They found ways to push past those limitations.
So it's about constantly evolving and finding new ways to create value.
Absolutely.
Okay. Companies that can't adapt risk becoming stagnant and losing their competitive edge. The final stage, the moat, focuses on how companies maintain their position in the face of competition.
I was just going to ask about that.
Okay.
It's one thing to build a network. But how do you defend it against rivals?
That's where the concept of the moat comes in.
Okay.
It's about building a defensible position. Like a castle protecting its territory.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
So how do companies build these metaphorical moats?
One strategy is to double down on the hard side. Those high-value users. Companies might offer them exclusive perks. Financial incentives, or simply a better user experience to keep them loyal.
It sounds like they're the VIPs of the network.
You could say that. Another powerful strategy is bundling.
Bundling. What does that mean?
Think of it as a dominant network leveraging its power to enter new markets. A classic example is Microsoft bundling Internet Explorer with its Windows operating system. They use their existing dominance to gain a foothold in the browser market.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You're using your strength in one area to conquer a new territory.
Exactly. But bundling isn't a guaranteed win. Product quality still matters. Microsoft tried to bundle their Bing search engine in the same way. But it never really caught on because Google simply had a better product.
So it's not just about brute force.
Right.
You need a smart strategy and a strong product to build a lasting moat.
That's the key takeaway.
Yeah.
Defending a network requires a multifaceted approach.
Right.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But there's one more crucial element to consider.
Okay.
Competition in the age of networks.
That sounds like a perfect topic for our next segment.
Yeah.
I'm eager to hear your insights on how companies navigate this increasingly complex landscape.
It's a fascinating area.
Yeah.
We'll explore how companies not only build networks, but compete and thrive within them.
Okay.
It's a whole new game with its own set of rules.
Okay, I can't wait to dig into that.
Yeah.
But first, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned about the cold start framework so far.
Okay.
It's amazing how much strategy and nuance goes into building a successful network.
It is. And remember, these principles apply far beyond the tech world.
Right.
They can be valuable insights for anyone looking to understand how things grow and connect in our increasingly networked world.
All right. I'm ready to tackle that final stage of the cold start framework.
Okay.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into network effects. We've covered a lot of ground from the cold start problem to building a moat to protect your network.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really interested in how companies compete in this landscape.
Right.
It seems like a totally different game.
It is. It's not just about having a great product anymore. Network effects add a whole new layer of complexity.
So what are some of the key things to remember when you're competing in a market where networks are so important?
First off, you have to acknowledge that your competitors likely have network effects too.
Right.
It's not enough to just have a network yourself.
Yeah.
You need to be strategic about it.
It's like an arms race.
Exactly.
Everyone trying to build the biggest and strongest network.
Exactly. And that's why understanding the nuances of network-based competition is crucial. It's not just about the number of users, but also the right users. Engagement and strategy.
So it's not just a numbers game.
No.
It's about the quality and engagement of those users.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's look at an example.
Okay.
Remember Airbnb?
Yeah.
They faced intense competition from a well-funded startup called Wimdu in Europe.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Wimdu tried to copy Airbnb's model in the European market. And grew quickly.
Right.
But they ultimately failed to overtake Airbnb.
Why was that? Did Airbnb have some secret weapon?
It was their global network effect.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Travelers from the U.S. were already using Airbnb to book stays in Europe.
Right.
And European hosts were already listing their properties there.
Yeah.
Airbnb had this dense network advantage from the start.
So being the first mover in a market can create a major advantage.
Absolutely.
Even if a competitor comes along with more money or resources.
Absolutely. It shows how powerful and sticky network effects can be.
Yeah.
Once a network gains momentum,
Yeah.
it's tough to dislodge.
But what if a smaller company wants to challenge a larger established network?
Right.
Is that even possible?
It definitely is.
Okay.
Andrew Chen talks about the importance of targeting the hard side of the network in these situations.
Okay.
The goal is to create a superior experience for those high-value users and win them over.
Can you give us an example of this in action?
Think about Uber's early days.
Okay.
They went up against established taxi companies, which had their own network of drivers and customers.
Yeah.
Uber gained traction by focusing on attracting the best drivers,
Okay.
offering better pay and more flexibility.
So they found a way to appeal to the hard side.
Yeah.
Even though they were the underdog.
Exactly. Understanding the motivations of your target users and building a product that caters to their needs is essential, especially when you're going head-to-head with a more powerful competitor.
This has been so insightful.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see network effects everywhere now.
I bet.
But is there a simple way to summarize the key takeaways for someone who's new to all this?
I think it comes down to 3 main points.
Okay.
First, network effects are a huge deal and can create a significant competitive advantage.
Okay.
Second, building a successful network requires a deep understanding of your target audience, especially those hard-side users.
Right.
And lastly, competition in the age of networks is a whole different ball game.
Right.
It's about building a defensible moat and understanding the unique dynamics of this kind of competition.
Those are some great points to remember. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to how much network effects are shaping the world around us.
Great.
And before we wrap up,
Yeah.
you mentioned providing a summary of the key points for our listeners.
Yeah.
Should we do that now?
Absolutely. It's a great way for them to solidify what we've discussed today.
Okay, so here are 10 key insights from our deep dive into network effects. 1, network effects occur when a product or service becomes more valuable as more people use it.
Right.
2, this creates a powerful cycle that can lead to rapid growth and market dominance.
Yeah.
However, building a successful network is not easy and requires overcoming the cold start problem.
Right.
The cold start framework outlines 5 stages of network growth: cold start problem, tipping point, escape velocity, hitting the ceiling, and the moat 5.
Yes.
To overcome the cold start problem, companies need to focus on attracting the hard side of the network,
Yeah.
the users who generate the most value.
Exactly.
Once a network reaches a tipping point, growth becomes self-sustaining and accelerates rapidly.
7. During the escape velocity stage, companies focus on user engagement, retention, and monetization.
Right.
8. Eventually, all networks face challenges as they mature and hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
Overcoming this requires innovation and adaptation.
Right.
9. The moat stage is about building a defensible position against competitors by leveraging network effects and strategic advantages.
Yes.
10. Understanding network effects is crucial not only for tech companies, but for anyone who wants to understand how things grow and connect in our increasingly networked world.
Absolutely.
So there you have it. 10 key insights to help you navigate the world of network effects.
That's a fantastic summary. I hope this deep dive has given our listeners a new perspective on how networks work and the incredible impact they have on our lives.
I think it definitely has. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey into the world of network effects.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon with another episode exploring a new topic.
Great.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.